Get this. 1.5 million Las Vegas residents are fed up. They're priced out of their own city, treated like second-class citizens in the place they call home, and seriously considering packing up and moving somewhere else. This isn't about tourists anymore. This is about the people who actually live in Vegas, the workers who keep the lights on, the families who built neighborhoods, the locals who made this city what it is. And they're done. Ready for this? Let me show you exactly why Vegas locals are abandoning the city they love. First up, let's talk about what's really happening. The Las Vegas metro area has roughly 2.3 million residents. That's Clark County. All the people who actually live here full-time. Now, 1.5 million ready to leave. That's not from a single study. But here's the thing. When you look at the stress indicators, the cost pressures, the job uncertainty, that number starts making sense. We're talking about the majority of residents feeling alienated, priced out, and ready to bail. Want to know what this means for the city? If even half that many people seriously consider leaving, Vegas has a massive problem. Because these aren't tourists who can be replaced. These are the workers, the teachers, the nurses, the bartenders, the dealers, the people who make the city function. Moving on to the biggest pressure point, housing costs. In June 2025, the median home price in southern Nevada topped $480,000. Think about that for a second. $480K. For someone working hospitality, a dealer making $40,000 to $50,000 a year, a server depending on tips. That's completely unaffordable. Even with two incomes, many families can't touch that price point. Here's what's really interesting. According to affordability data, only 33% of households in southern Nevada can reasonably afford the current median home price. That means 2/3 of people living here can't afford to buy a home in their own city. Rent isn't much better. As housing prices skyrocket, rents follow. A decent 2-bedroom apartment, you're looking at $1,800 to $2,000 a month. For someone making $15 to $20 an hour, that's most of their paycheck. Gone, just for a place to sleep. Add rising property taxes for homeowners, insurance costs that keep climbing, utilities going up, maintenance expenses. The squeeze is real, and it's forcing locals to make impossible choices. Stay and struggle, or leave and start over somewhere affordable. But wait, it's not just housing costs. Vegas has systematically made locals feel unwelcome in their own city. The Strip used to be a place locals could enjoy, grab dinner, catch a show, play some slots, feel like they were part of something special. Now, locals avoid the Strip entirely. Why? Because everything is priced for tourists. Parking fees at $40 to $50, resort fees if you want to use a pool, $25 cocktails, $30 burgers. It's not for locals anymore. It's for wealthy visitors. One local told reporters that paying $40 to $50 for parking at Mandalay Bay was the final straw. The final straw! Imagine living in a city where you have to pay $50 just to park at a casino that's technically in your hometown. The message is clear. The city is built for tourists and the ultra-wealthy, not for people like you. Regular working folks who live here. You're secondary, tolerated at best, unwanted at worst. Venues and amenities that used to target locals are becoming premium focused. Comp programs that rewarded regular play, gutted. Free parking for residents, gone at most properties. Affordable restaurants, replaced by upscale concepts charging tourist prices. Get this, Vegas locals are being priced out of Vegas, the city they built, the city they work in, the city where they pay taxes and raise families. They can't afford to enjoy it anymore. Now check this out. Remember when Vegas was a great place to find work? When you could get a hospitality job with decent tips and steady hours? Those days are fading fast. Tourism dropped 11.3% in June 2025 compared to June 2024. That's nearly 400,000 fewer visitors. When visitor numbers plunge, what happens to workers? Fewer hours, smaller sections, lower tips, or worse, layoffs. Hospitality workers are reporting income drops of 50% or more compared to previous years. A server who used to make $300 to $500 in tips per shift, now walking home with $124. That's not a small dip, that's a crisis. The gun range business near the Strip said it plainly. We can feel the slow in tourism. Local businesses that depend on both tourist and resident traffic are suffering. When tourists disappear, those businesses cut staff, reduce hours, some close permanently. And here's the kicker. While workers are getting squeezed, executives at casino companies are getting bonuses for cutting costs. Bonuses for firing workers and reducing service. The people running Vegas are getting rich, while the people actually working in Vegas are struggling to survive. Job insecurity is through the roof. You don't know if your hours will get cut next week. You don't know if your property will announce layoffs. You don't know if the tips that pay your rent will keep coming. That kind of uncertainty is unbearable, and it's pushing people to look for more stable opportunities elsewhere. Here's what's really interesting. It's not just about money, it's about respect. Locals feel like they don't matter anymore, like their city has been hijacked by corporations that only care about extracting maximum profit from tourists. You hear it in every conversation. The city I live in is now built for tourists and the ultra-wealthy, not people like me. That sentiment is everywhere. In break rooms, in neighborhood bars, on local forums. People are angry. They watched casinos eliminate free parking. They watched affordable buffets get replaced by $50 premium dining. They watched comp programs that rewarded loyalty get gutted. They watched their neighborhoods get more expensive while their jobs got less secure. And through it all, casino executives kept saying everything was fine. Keep optimizing for high rollers, keep raising prices, keep squeezing. The locals don't matter as much as the whales. But wait, the locals are the ones who work at those casinos. The ones who serve the drinks, deal the cards, clean the rooms, maintain the facilities. The ones who live here year-round while tourists come and go. And they're being told they don't matter? That's a recipe for resentment, and that resentment is reaching a boiling point. Moving on to daily life for Vegas locals. Because it's not just the Strip that's becoming unlivable, the entire city is straining under the pressure of the tourism-focused economy. Traffic is worse than ever. Infrastructure maintenance is lagging. Schools are overcrowded and underfunded. Public services are stretched thin. The things that make a city livable for residents, they're deteriorating while billions of dollars flow through casinos. Local news reports show residents avoiding the Strip due to high fees and poor value. That's their own backyard. Imagine living in a city where you actively avoid the main attraction because it's too expensive and doesn't want you there. Healthcare costs rising, childcare costs soaring, everything getting more expensive while wages stagnate. The math doesn't work anymore. You can't build a life in Vegas on a hospitality worker's salary, not when housing costs $480K and everything else keeps climbing. And here's the thing, Vegas used to be a place where you could make it work, where the cost of living was reasonable enough that service industry jobs could support a family, where locals could enjoy the city they helped build. That balance is gone. Now locals are making brutal calculations. Do I stay and struggle, or do I leave for somewhere I can actually afford? Somewhere my job has security? Somewhere I'm not treated like a second-class citizen in my own city? Get this, people are leaving. Data on outward migration from Nevada shows residents moving to other states. Where are they going? Places with lower costs of living, places with more diverse economies, places where one bad tourism quarter doesn't tank the entire job market. Arizona, Texas, Idaho, even California in some cases. States where housing is more affordable, where the economy isn't tied entirely to tourism and gaming, where workers have options and mobility. The combination of high costs, job instability, and feeling unwelcome is driving locals away. And once they leave, they're not coming back. You don't uproot your family, move to another state, get settled, and then decide to return to the place that squeezed you out. This is permanent population loss, the kind that erodes a city's foundation. And Vegas leadership seems oblivious to the danger. Now check this out. What are the implications if locals actually start leaving in large numbers? Because it's not just about the people who go, it's about what they take with them. First, neighborhood stability collapses. When people are constantly moving in and out, you don't get community cohesion. Schools suffer from high turnover. Volunteerism drops. Social ties weaken. The fabric of a livable city starts fraying. Second, the labour market gets even tighter. If workers leave, who staffs the casinos? Who serves the drinks? Who cleans the rooms? Either positions go unfilled, or casinos have to raise wages dramatically to attract workers. Either way, costs go up and service quality goes down. Third, the mid-market business ecosystem dies. Restaurants, retailers, entertainment venues that depend on local patronage, they close. Because tourists alone can't sustain them, you need the steady daily traffic from residents who live here. Fourth, the city loses authenticity. Part of what makes Vegas attractive to visitors is that it's a real city with real people. Not just a theme park for tourists. When locals disappear, that authenticity vanishes. And with it, some of the appeal for visitors too. Fifth, Vegas becomes entirely dependent on tourism with no cushion. Right now, when tourism drops, locals help stabilise the economy. They still eat out, shop, spend money. But if locals are gone or too broke to spend, a tourism downturn becomes catastrophic. Here's what's really interesting. Vegas is creating its own death spiral. By pricing out locals and focusing only on high-end tourists, they're undermining the foundation that makes the city work. Tourism relies on workers to deliver service. Workers need affordable housing and decent wages. Housing costs and job instability drive workers away. Fewer workers means worse service. Worse service means unhappier tourists. Unhappier tourists means declining visitation. Declining visitation means even more job cuts. And the spiral continues. Meanwhile, the loss of local spending hits businesses, which means fewer jobs for locals, which means more people leaving, which means even less local spending. Another spiral. The corporations running Vegas are so focused on quarterly earnings and optimizing for whales that they can't see the long-term disaster they're creating. They're killing the golden goose, plucking every feather for short-term profit while the goose slowly dies. But wait, let's make this real. These aren't just statistics. These are people with lives and families and dreams. The hospitality worker who reports tip income dramatically down versus last year, wondering how to pay rent next month, whether to pick up a second job, whether to move back to their home state where family can help. The long-time dealer who's been in Vegas for 20 years. Watch the city change. Watch their neighborhood get expensive. Watch their job become less secure. Now questioning whether to stay or start over somewhere else in their 50s. The young couple who moved to Vegas for opportunity, both working service jobs, saved for a down payment, then watched home prices jump from $300,000 to $480,000 in a few years. Their dream of home ownership slipping away. Now talking about moving to Phoenix or Texas where they might actually afford a house. The single mum working 2 jobs, rent eating 60% of her income, childcare eating another 20%, barely anything left for food and basics, exhausted and defeated, wondering if there's any point in staying. These stories are everywhere in Vegas right now. Every neighborhood, every service industry workplace, every local gathering spot. People sharing their struggles and asking the same question. Is it worth it anymore? Get this. Everyone has their breaking point, the moment they decide enough is enough. For locals in Vegas, those moments are piling up. Paying $50 to park at a casino in your own city, final straw. Getting your hours cut by half while prices keep rising. Final straw. Watching your tip income plummet because tourists stop coming. Final straw. Being unable to afford rent in the city where you work full-time. Final straw. Each person has their own tipping point, but more and more locals are reaching it, and once they do, they start making plans, researching other cities, looking at job opportunities elsewhere, calculating whether they can afford to move, taking steps toward leaving. The 1.5 million figure might seem dramatic, but when you consider that 2/3 of residents can't afford housing in their own city, when worker incomes are dropping 50%, when people are actively avoiding the strip because it's too expensive, suddenly that number doesn't seem so crazy. Maybe they're not all actively packing boxes, but they're thinking about it, talking about it, planning for it, and that's a crisis for Vegas. Moving on to what happens when you lose your local population. Because Vegas isn't just losing people, it's losing identity. Vegas used to be a real city with real people living real lives. Yes, tourism was huge. But underneath that, there were neighborhoods and communities, people who'd lived here for generations, who knew the history, who created the culture, who made Vegas more than just a strip with casinos. That authenticity matters. When tourists visit, they're not just seeing casinos and shows. They're experiencing a city, talking to locals, getting recommendations from people who actually live there, feeling the vibe of a place that's alive beyond the tourist facade. When locals leave, you lose that. The city becomes hollow, just a tourist trap with no soul, and eventually, even tourists notice. They can tell when a place is real versus when it's just playing a part, and they go somewhere real instead. Vegas is also losing institutional knowledge. The dealer who's been working for 30 years knows how to read players, manage a game, create atmosphere. When they leave, that expertise walks out the door. The server who knows regulars by name, who can recommend the perfect wine, who makes people feel welcome, gone. You can't replace decades of experience overnight. You can't replicate the intangible things that make a service city work. And Vegas is bleeding that expertise because they're not valuing the people who have it. Here's the brutal truth. The corporations running Vegas don't care about locals. They care about quarterly earnings, stock prices, executive bonuses, shareholder returns. Locals are just line items on a spreadsheet. Labor costs to be minimized, overhead to be reduced. They're not people with families and lives and dignity. They're expenses. And when you're optimizing for profit, you cut expenses. MGM, Caesars, Wynn, they're all publicly traded companies. They have to show growth every quarter. They have to satisfy Wall Street. And Wall Street doesn't care about locals either. Wall Street wants margins, revenue growth, EBITDA targets. So casino executives cut labor costs, reduce hours, eliminate benefits, gut comp programs, raise prices, squeeze workers, because that's what delivers the numbers Wall Street wants to see. And if locals leave because they can't afford to stay, that's not their problem. They'll just bring in new workers, exploit them for a few years, then replace them when they burn out or leave. It's a brutal system, and it's destroying the city from the inside out. So here's the question. Can Vegas fix this before it's too late? Is there any way to stop the exodus of locals and rebuild a sustainable city? The answer is yes, but it requires dramatic change and the willingness to sacrifice short-term profits for long-term stability. First, housing costs need to be addressed. That might mean rent control, more affordable housing development, property tax relief for long-time residents, something to stop the spiral of increasing costs. Second, workers need better wages and job security, living wages, consistent schedules, benefits that actually help. The days of minimum wage plus tips being enough are over. If you want to keep workers, you have to pay them enough to actually live in the city. Third, locals need to feel welcome in their own city. Bring back free parking for residents. Create locals-only promotions at casinos and restaurants. Make the Strip accessible again to people who actually live here. Stop treating locals like they're in the way of tourist revenue. Fourth, diversify the economy. Vegas can't be entirely dependent on tourism. That makes every downturn catastrophic for workers. Bring in other industries, tech, manufacturing, healthcare, create opportunities beyond. Hospitality. Fifth, invest in quality of life. Schools, infrastructure, parks, public services. Make Vegas a place people want to stay, not just a place they work until they can afford to leave. But here's the thing. All of this requires corporations to accept lower profit margins, to prioritize long-term sustainability over short-term gains, to see workers as people, not expenses. And right now, there's zero sign they're willing to do that. Ready for this? I think Vegas is committing slow-motion suicide. The tourist strategy is failing, the high-roller focus is backfiring, and now they're losing the one thing that kept the city functioning, the locals. You can't run a city without people who actually live there. You can't sustain a service economy when service workers can't afford housing. You can't maintain culture and authenticity when everyone who created it is leaving. The corporations running Vegas are so short-sighted they can't see the disaster coming. They think they can just keep squeezing, keep raising prices, keep cutting costs, keep optimizing for the ultra-wealthy, and somehow the foundation will hold. But it won't. The foundation is crumbling right now. 1.5 million people considering leaving, workers with 50% income drops, housing costs that 2/3 of residents can't afford, a city where locals avoid the strip because it's not for them anymore. This is unsustainable, and when it collapses, it's not going to be pretty. Because once you lose your local population, once you hollow out your city, once you destroy your workforce, you can't just rebuild overnight. Some damage is permanent. So here's my question for you. Are you a Vegas local? Have you felt this squeeze? Are you one of the people considering leaving? Share your story in the comments. Tell us what it's like living in Vegas right now, what your breaking point is, whether you're staying or going, whether you think there's any hope left. And if you're not from Vegas, but you care about what's happening to American cities, to workers, to ordinary people getting priced out of their homes, share this video, raise awareness, put pressure on these corporations to do better, because Vegas doesn't have to be this way. Change is possible, but only if enough people demand it, only if locals stand up and say enough is enough, only if we stop letting corporations treat people like disposable expenses. 1.5 million Las Vegas residents are fed up, priced out of their own city, watching housing costs hit $480,000 while their incomes stagnate or drop, working in a city that treats them like they're secondary to tourists, feeling the foundation crumble beneath their feet. Some are already leaving, packing up and moving to states where they can afford to live, where their jobs have security, where they're not constantly fighting just to survive. Others are still here but thinking about it, planning for it, waiting for the right moment or the final straw that pushes them over the edge. And Vegas leadership seems oblivious, still chasing whales, still raising prices, still cutting labor costs, still optimizing for quarterly earnings, while the city they're supposed to be stewarding slowly dies from the inside out. The question isn't whether Vegas will hit a crisis. The question is whether they'll figure it out before it's too late, before the locals are gone, before the workers have fled, before the city is just an empty shell of casinos and tourist traps with nobody left to make them work. Thanks for watching. If this resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe. We're going to keep covering what's happening in Vegas and what it means for all of us. See you in the next one.